This is the group summary for data meeting number 1 for group 3. The group members of group 3 consist of Nick Andrews, who teaches high school geometry, Daniel Bates, his data came from his high school physics class, myself, Natalie Erickson, and the data I contributed was from Algebra 1, and then Anna Struhar, who contributed data from her geometry class. Our group communicated through Google Docs, Google Slides, and Google Hangouts. We first started on the discussion board through our class site and decided to try the Google application. So we started with Google Hangouts, which was like a live chat feature, which was awesome because we were able to also download the app on our phones and get notifications right away so we could be in constant communication if our schedules allowed. With Google Hangouts, we had continuous conversation, and then we met live on Sunday, June 5th, from about 7 to 8 p.m. through Google Hangouts. We did a live video conference, and within that conference, we also had a Google Doc created, which allowed all of us to consolidate our information and also contribute to each other's data. And then from the Google document, we took that information and put it on a Google slide to create this current presentation that you are viewing now. During our live video conference, which again was on Sunday, June 5th, each team member explained the background of their data, kind of where it came from, the classes that they teach, anything about it that might be of importance to the other teammates. We also contributed to each person's notice and wonder statements, as well as added to the exploratory questions. And then at the end of our meeting, we also discussed the expectations to finish up this project. So taking a look at Nick's data, he used the macro data of his unit tests. He decided to take data from a teacher, school, and district, him being the teacher, and of all honors geometry students, and compared those 3 averages together. So a little bit about his wonder statement and his notice statement. As a whole, we pretty much stated that we noticed that his first standard was the highest averages compared to the others of his. We also wondered why the teacher's averages, meaning his averages, were much higher than the districts and the schools. And we therefore asked a couple questions asking, how can the district improve their averages? What can be done so that what Nick is doing in class is similar to what the district is doing so their averages can be a little bit more similar? Daniel's data was of his physics class. He actually compared, his honors physics class. He actually compared his section and another teacher's section of physics. We noticed in this graph that Daniel definitely had more students than the other teacher, and he also had higher averages than the other teacher. That was what we noticed as a group. And his wonder statements, we wondered, based off of the graph, the final percentages were so low. So what we wondered the challenges that were on the final, since the students' performance was a little bit lower compared to throughout the year. And then just to sum up the exploratory questions for Daniel, we pretty much were wondering and asked, how do the 2 students share material? How do they work together? And in what ways are they different? And maybe in those answers to those questions, they can kind of fill the gaps a little bit. So for my information, I took the unit test averages of my one class, my one Algebra 1 Riken class, which is called Riken for those students who have learning difficulties. This class met every day for 90 minutes, and it was also a very small class of 18 students since there are a wide spread of different difficulties or disabilities that they struggle with each day. So as a whole, myself and my classmates noticed that the 3rd unit had the lowest average, as well as the last 3 units had a decline compared to the beginning of the year. And they also wondered why there was that drop off for Unit 3 and why was there that drop off at the end of the year. And then the questions that they asked were kind of relating to those things, like do the units need to be that hard at the end of the year? Is there order? What is the content that's covered that results in a drop off at the end of the year? Anna took her two geometry classes, and compared both of those test averages for 10 chapters of material. Her class met for 90 minutes every other day, and they did meet at the same exact time on each of those days. So we, as a group, discussed how that couldn't be an influence in the changes or differences of the averages. And she also wanted to add that the class sizes were similar. So as a group, we kind of noticed that the blue section always pretty much scored higher than the gold section, and that as a whole, Chapter 10 for both classes had the lowest scores. We also wondered the difficulty level then of Chapter 10, and why was there such a drop-off at the end of the year? And then in addition to that, we also wondered why the blue averages were higher for the most part than the gold averages. Then the questions we asked Anna were pretty much revolving around the material on that Chapter 10 test and what could be improved to help the students with that material, since she clearly sees that drop off at the end of the year. So to sum up everything as the team process, we definitely had great strengths in collaborating frequently using Google Hangouts. It was a new application for all four of us, and it lent itself extremely well. I definitely liked the aspect of adding it to my cell phone so that I could get notifications whether I was at home or out at the store or something. Those notifications always popped up on your phone, so we were all in contact in some way. We also had successful collaboration and a great team atmosphere on the live chat. Everyone had something to input, and we were able to discuss and figure out things as a whole. Great ideas were added by each person, which allowed us to complete this project. Some weaknesses, or I should say one weakness that we decided just as a group, is that for the next meeting and project that we have to submit, we think that we're going to set harder due dates for each of us, so that when one person needs to create the last final presentation, it is expected that by this date, by this time, everyone's part that is needed for that final presentation is completed. Everything, anything can happen, but I think if we set ourselves a little bit more guidelines now that we kind of know how this works and now that we got to know each other, we definitely think that that will be extremely beneficial for the assignments to come. Overall, this was very successful for us. We are very excited to kind of teach similar topics, being science and maths, and look forward to where we go next as a team.